yesterday, he's been worried in the past about the Republican Party, maybe worried about particular races, but he's never been worried about our country the way he is now, rightfully so. Because this election is not just a choice between a Republican, a Democrat, and an opportunist. This election is not just a choice between conservative principles, liberal principles, and no principles. This election is a referendum on our country, on its identity, on who we are going to continue to be moving forward. Now, let's first remind ourselves of who we are, in case we have forgotten, which I don't think any of you have. But it's important to remind ourselves because people have this tendency, it's one of the worst failings of human beings, a tendency to take things for granted. We have all done that. We've taken our health for granted. We take our loved ones for granted. And sometimes I fear that perhaps we take our country for granted. And we shouldn't. Because God has blessed us with the single greatest nation in all of human history. It's easy to say that. With all due respect, yesterday a gentleman that is here from England is covering this. He asked me, when people hear this overseas, how should they feel about you calling America the greatest nation on the earth? And I don't mean that in an offensive way. My parents came from another country. But I think the history proves this. We are clearly the freest people that have ever walked the earth. You know what's proof of that? This very rally right now. I mean, think about it. Think about what we are doing here today. We are plotting to get rid of the governing class in Washington, D.C. Through an election. But that's literally what we are doing. We are here today to speak out against what the people in charge of our country are doing. Yes. In many countries on earth, that could cost you your life. This kind of event would cost you your life. And many other countries, it would cost you your business. It would cost you your freedom. We can't take that for granted. The fact is that our constitutional republic, and more importantly, 230 some odd years of adherence to that, have made us the freest people that have ever walked the earth. We are the most prosperous people that have ever lived. And our prosperity is not measured simply by material wealth, by the way. In fact, what makes our prosperity unique is not our rich people or our large corporations. Because every country has rich people. Every country has large corporations. What makes us different is that anyone from anywhere can accomplish anything. I mean, this is literally the only country in the world that you can start a business out of the spare bedroom of your mother. You're thinking that would be a violation of the zoning code, right? People do it all the time. I'm reminded of that everywhere I go. Last night we had the honor of having a fundraiser that the mayor headlined for me. It was hosted at the home of a young man younger than me, 37, 38 years of age. He has a very successful business. He started this business out of the garage of his parents' home with a $1,000 loan that his mom gave him to go hire an accountant to start up this subchapter S corporation. Now we listen to that, we hear that so often. It is so deeply ingrained as part of our story. It's probably the story of a lot of people in here today. Because today that company hires 150 people. They employ people. Not only has he provided prosperity and opportunity for himself, he's providing a living to 150 other people and their families. Okay? We hear that story so often. It is so common in America that I think sometimes we run the danger of taking it for granted. Let us remind ourselves of something. That story is nearly impossible in almost every other economy in the world. You realize that in almost every other economy in the world, the same companies and the same families have been running things decade after decade. If your parents were workers, you were a worker. If your parents were employees, you were an employee. There's nothing wrong with that. But what makes us different is that in this country, the worker can become the owner. The employee can become the employer. It's not like that anywhere else. That is a product of our adherence to the free enterprise system, an American-style free enterprise system rooted in entrepreneurship. And the job of government is to make that easier, not harder.